and just move on. So now what we can do is create the authentication. There are different methods for secure authentication. We are just going to use Ektor's tokens. So that's a link to how you make a call to Carbon Cloud. There's multiple, much more secure ways of doing this. Please review the other methods in the documentation, but this is an example to write scripts much more quicker. And this documentation shows you exactly how to create that XAuth token as well, which I've already described to you. So this is a test a CURL, and what you can do is replace the variables with your API just to test that your API and your API keys actually work. So using CURL is a quick method to make sure that the tests are going to work before you move on to Postman. So once we set up the global variables, what we need to do is set up the authorization. So what I'd like to do is select the topmost branch of your forked carbon black collection, and on the top right hand side, select authorization. Then you create select the API and insert the values as per the screenshot or the information that we already created in the text file, which is the key name is x-auth-token, exactly as that. The value that you're going to use is exactly what we had before, which is CB underscore key with the double curly brackets for global variables or variables inside Postman / CB underscore custom ID and add to the header. That way, your whole branch and the API calls will have that authorization, and then it will be able to connect and test easily. So let's have a look at how we set that up. So we'll set the global variables clicking on here. As you can see, I've already pre-configured most of this. Just going to edit and update the global variables for my new API key. And put the secret. And you can set this as a secret if you wanted to. So just save that. Made a mistake there. Now we're going to find the VMware Postman collection. Simply do a search inside Postman, and I've found that one. So just going to expand this out. So here's the Carbon Black collection. I just need to find the right area, the right collection, so I can fork it. So here it is. Put in Carbon Black. Click there. You're welcome to read a little bit more detail. That's the web URL. And now we can actually click on collection, and then we can fork this collection. So once we fork the collection, what we can do is go to the topmost branch, click on authorization, select API key, and then we can insert the variables that we need. So XAuth is a key that you need. And again, you can use multiple authentication methods. We're just going to use this for our example. And this is a variable that you can use here. And we already set up the global variables, which will basically substitute that. Now you can do a quick test. Go to workload, sensor lifecycle, and run a test. And it says request parameters are missing. That's because we're using a post and we have to put that into the body. And we'll cover that in 1 second. So in Postman and a post, we need to for a post, we need to add information for that post. So the post requires you to submit information in JSON. As, and as an example, Open Carbon Cloud workload sensor and sensor kit and configuration links. You can do a test post using CRL as per this example, just to test the post as well as the authentication as well. So here's a example you can copy. You have to type that out. If you copy that from PowerPoint, it's not going to work because of characters. But test it before you use it on Postman, but you can use CRL for testing as well. So post requires information to be submitted in JSON. What you have to do before you do this is identify the actual variables and the configurations that you need. So review the documentation, identify the post format, and make sure that you have the right information in terms of the variables. If you have the wrong information, it's not going to work. If you have the wrong version or older version, this is an old screenshot of the documentation, 3.7, etc. It's not going to be available. You need to find the latest version from Carbon Black Cloud or the documentation and insert that or give that information in your post. So just make sure you do that as well as the expire date as well. And the architectures, etc. that you are looking for, Mac OS, Linux, and you can get the exact variables that you need to put pretty much from the sensor download information. So in order to insert that into the post, what we can do is open the API call and select the body near the edit and basically select content style. And then edit the sensor URL underscore request and select text, insert the JSON with your variables as per the example on the right, and verify the sensor version is available for download. That's what we discussed before. Then click send, and you should be able to get a response, which means that it actually worked. So now that you have a working API call, what you can do on the right-hand side is click the code icon and get a Python or a PowerShell or any other language version of that URL. And that way you can do other things to effectively write scripts or programs with this API. So what we'll do is show you a demo of that first. So we're going to send URL request. As per that documentation, we need to submit a JSON file. So we got content type enabled, and then we'll update the content type to application/JSON. Again, this is all from the documentation, following the documentation guides. Now, in terms of what we're going to post or submit, the JSON text is what we had before, which is exactly this. And once we click send, we'll actually get a response. So just check that again. Click send. Now we got the response. Everything is working. We've got the sensor URL to download. We could click on the code, and that's the PowerShell. And then we can actually, I prefer Python HTTP client, or I actually prefer Python requests module, which is the built-in module. Now you have a working script, right? Very powerful, very easy. So let's pause that, move on. Now, that's fantastic, right? Now we have a working Python or PowerShell or Ruby or Go, whatever language you prefer. And then we can actually improve on this. Again, we can use ChatGPT. What you can do is give that script to ChatGPT. You can convert that script to firstly a function, add variables to it. Then you could even ask ChatGPT to write code to download the sensor. Then you could even execute the sensor via the install command line inputs. And then if you want to get more creative, you can even get help from ChatGPT to automatically detect the operating system and input those as variables dynamically. Thank you so much. I hope this is helpful, and I hope you get started with scripting and programming with Carbon Black Cloud.